Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, Lisa.
How are
Hello,
all of
hi.
you?
Hi, Makai.
Hi,
Hi,
how are you,
hi.
Pratna?
Hello.
Hello.
This is really wonderful to see all these different faces here, in one platform. That's really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to be here, Session. Good to be here.
So, hello everybody. This is Pratna here, and I'm going to be your host for today evening. It's 7 p.m. here in India, and I wish all of you who have logged in a very, very good evening and a warm welcome to Agraga 2022, our Leadership Festival. Before we begin, I'm just going to ask you all to relax and answer a very simple question in your chat box. How many of you think of yourselves as leaders? A quick response.
The question should be anybody of you guys who is not considering yourself as a leader.
No, the question here is who do you think of yourself as a leader? Now that's the question. Okay. Okay, Sachin says yes. Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. Okay. Great. So this question is great for all of us sitting here and for many people who are there live. I think when I had asked this question to my people during my training programs, a lot of people had answered in the negative. And one of the main reasons I suspect could be the plethora of information that we possess. There are more than 760 million websites that talk about leadership, leaders, characteristic traits, behaviors, leadership theories, models, what a leader does, what he doesn't do, and how they have changed the world and the organizations, so on and so forth. Navigating through this information, the maze of this information, it is very easy for a common person to start mapping or prototyping themselves into what we have conditioned to see leaders as and find themselves lacking. So most of us, the people around us actually look at leaders and think of them to be larger than media savvy, having a long list of quotable quotes, and most importantly, selling and seducing the people with their carefully crafted brand of personal power, and thus increasing the gnawing divide between leaders and those whom we believe to be labeled as followers. A great wordsmith had once said, some people are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. So, my question then is what about the rest of us on a planet that is inhabited by more than a billion people? How is it that there are just a handful of known leaders leading the pack and going down in history of their greatness and leadership? So, do you sense that there might just be something that is not right with this narrative? We are constantly been numbed by the message that in order to be a leader, you need to fulfill a tall order of qualities and traits. And looking at that, most people resign themselves to following and believing rather incorrectly that they are incapable of becoming leaders or they are just followers. Quoting John Quincy Adams here, who served as the sixth president of the US in 1825 to 1829, a stellar statesman, in fact, said that if your actions inspire others to dream more, to do more, and to become more, you are definitely a leader. Leadership is all about impact, influence, inspiration, and innovations, qualities and attributes that we all have in varying degrees and measures. Look around you, right from birth up to this very point that we are here sitting and listening and participating in this festival. You have been impacted by so many people, influenced by so many people, inspired by so many different people, and people who were completely unaware that they have had this kind of an impact on you. And not to mention that you yourself would have impacted so many other people and their lives by your care, by your ability to listen, by your empathy, by your compassion, and for making it not about you, but about them. You are all leaders. Our leadership festival is celebrating the hidden leaders inside all of you and those qualities and traits. This festival will inspire to be more, to give back more. So sit back and keenly listen to some of the really wonderful speakers handpicked to drive home this message to all of you. At this point, without further ado, I would like to invite the person who made this all come together and whose vision and mission to make the world a better place and to grow a global community of leaders inspires all of us and all of us who chose to walk this path with him. I introduce Mr. Sachin Sani, who is an author, leadership coach, keynote speaker, and the founder of Beacons Academy and the Academy of Curators. His journey is inspiring and teaches us fortitude and the power of will to do something different and not to be bogged and resigned to our circumstances. A little bit about his inspiring story. He was addicted to drugs at the age of 16 and cleaned buses to earn money for his education. After he completed his graduation, he ran away from home to Hyderabad to become an English trainer in communication. Inspiration comes in many forms, and for him, it came in the form of Robin Sharma's book, A Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and which helped him to kick smoking and drinking. He did his master's from Annamalai University and also pursued a degree in psychology and developed a groundbreaking model to bring behavioral change, improve decision making, and accelerated information called conscious information analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, Sachin Sani is a walking, talking testimonial to you are who you choose to be and what you make yourself to be. Over to you, Sachin.
Thank you so much, Pratana Sethumadhavan. And also, thank you for all the people who have come joined together. So, as I said, as Pratana said, she just gave me a small introduction. As I wrote there, she asked at the first question, here, who would like to call themselves as leaders? And I said, uh, me. And I always had a passion for leadership. I don't know when it started, but perhaps I can, bring back to a memory. Maybe it's years back when I was working as a bus cleaner in my local neighborhood. So I used to clean buses. So it was this time when I, um, you know, when I was just washing the bus, I happened to meet a man who just walked towards me, and he just stood by me and he asked me this question, why are you doing this pathetic job? And he asked this question, and I was quite, intrigued. At the same time, I was a little ashamed of myself, but then I asked myself this question, because what I was doing did matter. Just imagine people who are going to different places, who came to that bus and who happened to sit on that seat which was cleaned by me, and perhaps the whole scenario changes then. So that day, when he asked that question, that day I decided this myself, that one day I would do something myself. I would be somebody, and I would, contribute something to my society. So that's, I think, precisely where my journey started. And from there, it was a long, long journey. And today, I would like to give you a small message. And because since leadership, it's something that I always want to have, because that was something that I lacked in my personal life as well as my social life. So I just would love to tell you three stories. One of the story happened in South Africa. So it was years back in 1955, and probably you all are familiar with the story. In 1955, December 1st, Rosa Parks came out of her office room. She was quite tired, and she climbed the bus to her hometown, and she sat on a seat where whites were supposed to sit. And while she was traveling, a few other whites came onto the bus, and they wanted to sit, but they somehow could not find any other seat, and the driver was forced to ask her to sit at the back seat since she was a black woman. But she refused to go back. And that was the beginning of a civil rights movement. And in fact, after 5 days after, on 5th of December 1955, there was a boycott in Montgomery, which actually literally sparked a series of social movement that later became known as the civil rights movement. Now, I'd love to take you a little backward in time, in a time where in 1893, when Gandhiji was in South Africa. So he was a lawyer in South Africa, and while he was traveling to Pretoria, he happened to be on a train, and while he was traveling, he was asked to get out of that place because he was traveling on a first class compartment. And when he was traveling the first class compartment, he was he was not supposed to be there because he was a colored man, and he was thrown out of the train at the railway station. The name of the railway station is Peter Maritzburg. Okay, so that's kind of difficult to pronounce, but you could see there, if you were to visit this railway station, you could see a statue of Gandhi, and close to the statue of the Gandhi, you could also find a small monument in which it was written that Gandhi was thrown out of the train, and which actually started which actually sparked the leader within him. And later, this Gandhiji, which he after 21 years of service in South Africa, he went to India in 1915 and started the freedom struggle, Satyagraha. And the other story happened quite years after the two of these stories. In 1914, when Adolf Hitler, he was first began to participate. In 1914, Adolf Hitler participated in the First World War that happened in Yspres, and that was a time when he first came in contact with the Nazi Party and the idea of Nazi Party, and later he revolutionized the Nazi Party. In these three stories, Rosa Parks, Gandhi, and Hitler, three of them were leaders. Rosa Parks was a leader, Gandhi was a leader, and Hitler was a leader. And both were really famous. And both were followed by millions of people. But what's the difference? The one difference that you could find is that one was here, Rosa Parks and Gandhi were driven by a vision that's rooted on deep values and principles. But on the other hand, you could see Hitler was driven by injustice, selfishness, and segregation. And what later became was that, when Rosa Parks and Gandhi literally sparked a series of social movements which actually ultimately shaped the world that we see today, Hitler literally killed millions of people and destroyed the hopes and dreams of millions of people. So the fact is, here the thing is, these three people were great leaders, but they literally created three different kinds of environment, three different kinds of history, three different kinds of future. Now just imagine if our organization, if our community, if our nations were led by people like Hitler, what would be it like? Just imagine now we had only one Hitler. Now imagine if he had 10 Hitlers in South Africa, 10 Hitlers in India, 10 Hitlers in Japan, in Germany, in US. What would be the situation? Now take this scenario in a different perspective. Take this scenario in this way. Just imagine a country, an organization, a community led by, hundreds of Gandhis, hundreds of Rosa Parks. What would be the end results? Just imagine the place where you're working, your family. Just imagine one person in your family is a Gandhi. Just imagine. What would be the situation, the environment that your family will have in the future, or that organization will have, or that community perhaps will have? Now imagine if we have a global community, a global civilization where, organizations, communities, people are led by thousands of Gandhis, thousands of Martin Luther Kings, thousands of Abraham Lincolns. Just imagine the situation. How would the world look like? Do you think, we have a series of leadership talks named as the curator's speech. And at the curator's speech, lots of wonderful people, leaders from across the different arena, they come and they speak about leadership. And one of the story that I actually heard from one of my friends, Sudhir Rao. He's a leader in India. So he happened to come to visit, give a talk at the curator's speech. And one of the story that he told was about the story of Kobe. In 1995, Kobe had an earthquake. And within a minute, the whole city, the whole city was destroyed. And he showed me a picture of the destroyed city in 1995. And then he took me to a tour of Kobe city after 6 years, just 6 years after that. And he showed me a picture of Kobe, which literally really shocked me. You know what I saw there? It was a brilliant, a city, something like a shining city close to a river. I could never imagine, how could these people build, design such a city after 6 years of such a massive destruction. And I realized that the power of leadership is beyond our imagination. A power of leadership can even, rebuild not only an organization or a community, but a whole civilization. Now, the stories of such valiant stories we listen every time. We look at, we buy books and we read, we listen to these stories. Organizations, communities, societies, civilization, built by people, built by leaders. And that's when I realized the power of leadership. If we have such leaders in our society, in our community, think about the changes that we can bring to our community. Imagine the changes that we can bring to our community. So today we talk about climate changes. Today we talk about poverty. Today we talk about lack of education. Today we talk about all the problems. Now think about if we have leaders. If we were leaders. Now she talked about, who here think that you were leaders. Just imagine if we had such a leaders. Imagine the change we can bring. And my intention and the vision of Beacons Academy is the same. We want to make a 50 million leaders by the end of 2050. And this leadership festival is a beginning of such a movement that could transform not only a community, a movement that could transform a generations, a movement that could transform a whole civilization and its future, because people have done this. Now, when I was thinking about this, the one question that I often had was that, would I be crazy, to start a kind of leadership movement? So is it because that I wanted to be famous? I had all these kinds of doubts, self-doubts. And I even thought, for a moment that maybe it's just my childish dream or wish. But then I realized, all these people, if you would just look around in the history, you could find all the people who have done great things in the history of the world. And one thing that you could find there, one exceptional thing that you could find there, that these people were just the descendants of Homo sapiens, our forefathers, nothing exceptional. We were them. So I encourage you to participate in this movement that could, in fact, create a ripple effect throughout the global society and in turn help millions of people to not only have a better life, but to lead a life that they always feel or worthy of living. And with this, I just would love to conclude my words. And we have an amazing teams of leaders waiting for us to speak. And I just want to once again say thank you for becoming a part of this movement, staying with us, being here, because this, your time, your voice, and your message matter, because that can change lives. Thank you.
Wow, that was fantastic and so inspiring. And yes, we are looking to building so much of leadership. And like in all fields, one cannot undermine the importance and the value of a coach in creating leaders. Leadership is an area which benefits tremendously with coaching. A leadership coach helps to increase the skills and hone the leadership and enhance confidence of people, and also co-pilot leaders to ace specific challenges, especially in their personal and professional lives. It's my privilege to present Andreas Pratanas, who comes with an impressive 30 years hands-on experience in the area of management and human capital development in multinationals across diverse industries in Europe and the Middle East. He has been involved in major business transformation projects, along with the design and delivery of leadership coaching interventions for the top management. And just to list a few, Saudi Electricity Company, Qatar Petroleum, Saudi British Bank, and many more such multinationals, HSBC, GIB, to name a few more. Andreas is actively involved in international coaching assignments that include one-to-one executive coaching for top leadership teams. And today he is going to talk to us about leadership coaching is about behavioral change and what to look in a leadership coach. I think this is extremely important because we are all looking to become fantastic leaders. Over to you, Andreas.
Thank you so much, Sachin. Thank you so much for inviting me. I am really overwhelmed. I really cannot find the real words to express how happy, how humble I am. Pratana, thank you so much for inviting me also.
Thank you.
I just would like to share with you that I am, even though I am almost 60, but I'm very young into leadership. Well, I still remember some words of one of my really good teachers globally, and this is Marshall Goldsmith. Happens to be one of his 30 advanced leaders globally. And I thank him for saying, okay, Andreas, listen, it is easy to understand the concept of leadership, but the challenge for leaders is to practice the understanding of leadership. So my goal is, as a coach, as a leadership coach, to stand next to leaders. I am not talking about the word managers. There are two words in my life that I really have found out that don't express myself. One is management. I hate the word management. I prefer the word leadership. And the other word is the word mission. I don't have a mission. I have a purpose. So I'm very close to Sachin and Pratana to say that My purpose is to make my coaches really understand what really takes to create and to develop new leaders, their own new leaders. I have been coaching people in the Middle East. I have been coaching people from India and from Pakistan and from the MENA region. And I have realized that there is one word representing leadership, and this is the word engagement, the word connection with our companies, with our people, with the leaders of our people. So it is a matter of behavior to make things see from a different perspective and say, yes, I need to communicate. I need to open up with my coaches, with my people, with anybody, so we can get together. I don't want actually to take most of your time, but to say, guys and people, real good friends, talk. Leadership is about talking. Leadership is about communication. Leadership is about engagement. You cannot imagine how much you can achieve by having those people communicate to their own people. Does not make any difference if you are from Egypt, from Pakistan, from India, from South Africa, from Greece, or from Italy. People need to be heard. People need to talk. People need to express themselves. This is about leadership. And we have a goal, we have a purpose to make organizations, the little communities called organizations, thrive. How? Through me and you. We have such an obligation to the rest of your people, like Sachin said. We need to make the difference. We need, and this is our legacy, my dear friends. So can we change? Of course we can change. Can our leaders change? Of course. Simply you need to be next to them. Simply you need to actually transfer this message. Open up, communicate, listen, engage. I don't want to take more of your time. Once again, it is a privilege. I'm feeling very humble being with you guys, being with the rest of your people, being with regard to distinguished leaders. Whenever you need me, I'll be there. Sachin, Pradana, thank you so much for inviting me. I will always be next to you. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, Andreas. And I think your message was really very important. The importance of communication and also engagement and actually talking to people. Yeah, a lot of us find ourselves short on these areas, and there are various inhibitions and pre-assumptions before we talk to people. And I think that is a completely inhibiting behavior which does not help leadership or which does not bring in influence towards people at all. It doesn't impact. Another thing that is really very important is that a great leader is also a reflective leader. And I have the privilege to present Nairobi Dalangala. Nairobi is a founder and CEO of NMD Cycle Waste Management Company, whose aim is to help others rethink, engage, innovate, inform, and participate. He wants to create a circular economy and sustainable development while fighting against climate change. And I think this is absolutely the need of the hour. He's also serving in the capacity of Community Against Plastic Waste Management in South Africa. He's a marketing expert and a leadership coach, public speaker, and a youth development leader. He has worked with Norwegian Mission Society and CATSI Youth in Action. He holds a tertiary vocational diploma in cross-cultural understanding and international work from HALD International Center, a certificate for global justice, and creating account from FK Norway. His motto in life is not about the destination and the journey is the true reward. Over to you, Nairobi, for your thoughts about how leaders should reflect.
Well, thank you very much. So I'd like to just thank everyone for having me. It's pretty amazing to be part of this journey and to be part of the people for inviting me, and thank you for everyone. Well, my journey being a reflective person started in when I actually went to Norway. At Hull International Center, they used to make us reflect. So before that, I was never a reflective person. You know, I never used to look back at the things that I would do, at the things that I would say, at what actually impacted my next decision, my next movement. And we went through a lot of I would say challenges that they will always challenge us in the morning to kind of reflect back to what we did last week, how it impacted our lives, and how it has changed our thinking and perception. And through those challenges, I remember one of our lecturers, Siri, she would always in the morning tell us to take a walk for 30 minutes and find a spot, just sit there and think and just reflect on how can I actually make my life better? How could I actually have done a certain thing better? As they've said, I am the founder and CEO of NMD Cycles and the director of Community Against Plastic Waste that is currently running in several countries, 11 countries in Africa. So with that being said, I was given also the opportunity to work with the youth in Norway for the Norwegian mission to Sweden. We were planning camps. I actually started to get as I was is that it's quite strange in this one kind of leaders. One could say it's a CEO or a manager or politicians, but that's just how the world wants us to remain in a box. So having worked with the youth, I realized that everybody has a potential to be a leader. Everybody is actually a leader. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what you are doing, how successful you are. Leader doesn't equal title, you know? So if a leader doesn't equal a title, but then kids grow up thinking that you have to become a CEO, you have to become a minister, you have to become a team leader somewhere for you to feel like you're a leader. And I think that's part of the faults that I would like to change in the world and through this journey actually, because starting the youth from an early age believing in themselves as leaders, as Sachin actually mentioned, imagine if someone in your family had the qualities of Gandhi or had the qualities of Nelson Mandela. Just imagine that. And that doesn't just happen on its own. That happens actually when we encourage the youth as from an early age, from primary schools, to think of themselves as leaders. to feel like they are leading in their lives, because believe it or not, they are already leaders. Someone is actually looking at them. So being a reflective leader as I am, I used to walk my sister to school, and every time when I would drop her off, a couple of her friends would actually gather around her, and then they would follow her around, and I would just look at those. And I realized that as young as she is, she's 7 by the way, but she already has people looking up to her. She already has people who are fascinated by the way that she is as young as she is. So growing kids into believing in themselves would actually help us produce more leaders in the world. And I don't want to take a lot of more time. Thank you very much for giving me this time to say something. And I hope that this journey would be as amazing as it is right now. Thank you, everyone.
Wow. Thank you so much, Nairobi. I think you just conveyed the essence of the entire festival, which is where we all believe that everybody has the potential of leadership, and it is something that they should, exploit, reflect, and thereby, execute in their lives to achieve greatness. And our next speaker has such a beefy profile that I really need to take I think I am muted. Just a minute. Yeah, I think. Okay. So our next speaker has such a beefy profile that I really need to take a breath to read all that she has done and achieved. I'm talking about Nokubanga Banga, who is going to be our next speaker and the recipient of the Global Training Development Leadership Award at the 25th World HRD Congress 2017. She has a Bachelor of Technology degree in Human Resource Management, a diploma in self-esteem facilitation. She is a certified master coach from UK, a certificate in behavioral coaching from Henley Business School, a diploma in logotherapy, an international diploma in teaching and training, along with a national diploma in clothing management. It is my privilege to welcome Nokubanga Banga, a leadership coach, author, speaker, EQ practitioner, logotherapist, and a certified Imagine a Woman international coach and facilitator. She is inspired to guide women to see themselves and their innate power, and likes to facilitate conversations that are meaning centric, purpose aligned, and self worth grounded. So, therefore, who better to talk about power up and lead? Over to you, Nokubanga.
Thank you, Prathana, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this movement, Sachini. I had prepared a presentation, but I am happy to continue just having a conversation because it is just a collection of stories. So how I looked at what I thought I could share today was based on my personal experiences and my experiences that I've learned in learning to lead my story and my leadership agenda. And this is also based on insights from many clients that I've worked with, how they navigate leading themselves and their stories. So I'd like to start this with a very short story of how I got my own personal wake-up call around leadership. I just want to say, I like what, and I hope I pronounce your name correctly, Andreas, what you said earlier on. I'm still young being a leader. And I was like, yay, I'm also still young being a leader. I'm still navigating this. It doesn't feel like there's a finish line because every time you challenge yourselves, something new pushes you and your boundaries and what you think you know about leadership, or even yourself for that matter. So absolutely resonate with that. Thank you. So it was about 15 years ago that I see some South Africans here. You would know the Felons Boutique Hotel. I was at a 2-day leadership conference. I think it was 5 years into my career. And I was at this conference and it was day 2. I was uncomfortable. I was feeling so much discomfort. I was unhappy. And the reason was I was unhappy was because it was 2 days I hadn't said anything. I wasn't showing up. I was not participating in the meeting and I wasn't liking that. But also I had observed, because I just joined the organization, but I also observed even in the previous organization, I was experiencing what Sachin mentioned about self-doubt. But then in that day, I decided to ask some of my colleagues to ask the questions that I was yearning to ask. And when they asked the question, the feedback that came from the people that were responding from the question was that that's a great question. And that positive feedback was a huge wake-up call for me, because it told me that if I don't step up to my story, it is not going to matter. It is not going to matter for myself. It is not going to matter with what I want to pursue. So if I want to be in front of my story, I really need to start to ask myself, how do I want to shift it? How do I want to inspire myself to be better at being myself? Really, really uncomfortable experience that I experienced then. And I made a vow to myself. I saw that I was uncomfortable and I knew it had nothing to do with anyone. As Nairobi said, we are our own leaders first. And I made a decision that says, this is not how the story is going to end. I am not going to continue to show up in this manner. I am not going to be the one who's in the own way of my own success by fearing what was invisible. And to be honest with you, it was me. So when I realized that, the next question that I asked myself is, I am clear I do not want to be like this anymore, but what do I want? Yeah? And what I want was to end this discomfort, but I needed clarity. And the clarity for me was defining what will be meaningful. I wanted to be a better participant. I wanted to speak up in meetings. Hello. And I wanted to have meaningful relationships where people cannot just see me being quiet in meetings, can engage with me. I wanted to have a sense of value and worth, right? And when I realized that, and I had to answer this question, those moments helped me to anchor how I want to empower my story, how I want to be better at being myself, how I want to sit in front of my own story. And I don't know about you and your own experiences in evolving with yourself. And at this time, when this happened, I mean, I had been to many motivational speakers. I mean, someone mentioned reading books. I'd read amazing books about leading yourself, mind power. Those at that time were the popular books. I had read many of them, but nothing else was shifting. But one of the things that I learned being a coach, but also that with my story, was that there's a perception about power that someone must give it to you. There's something about us waiting for it to land somewhere or to be landed by someone. And I found myself trapped in that Sleeping Beauty moment. That someone is coming to save me. But here is the reality. No one is coming to save you from being better at being yourself. The search party will come because you have made the choice to define what makes meaning for yourself. And this is where I found myself at, that if I want my personal power, I've got to take it. No one's going to do it for me. I cannot delegate this part of my story. I need to get in there. But secondly, for me is once I take it, I've got to switch it on. I've got to switch it on. But what does switching on look like? I asked myself, hi, can you still hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Oh, okay,
Loud and
great.
clear.
Yes, we
Okay.
can hear you.
Lovely. So as I navigate what it means to switch on my power, I needed clarity. What does it mean, therefore? So I needed to be grounded in my power station. What does that look like? So that meant that me being in touch with what makes me strong, what are my strengths, what it makes me stand out, what are my beliefs, are they encouraging the story to shift? And what I was seeing is that I was practicing giving up. I was practicing being a victim, that it's someone's fault, blame mentality. That is what I observed. And in that understanding that I become what I practice, I will continue to receive this. So it was at that moment where you experiencing that tension of direction between where you are and where you want to be. As I started to step up, because I needed to step up, as I started to step up, and I see this with many clients, that as they focus on what they want to expand, they become visible to themselves. And the more they become visible to themselves, the more they understand themselves, the more they show up in meetings and speak up. Right? So for me, being able to lead yourself and be in front of your story, you need your own personal power. You need to revere yourself, and you need to be present for your own story, because no one's going to do it for you. Absolutely no one. I'm going to end because I don't want to take too much of your time. But for me, what has really been powerful in empowering ourselves and leading our stories is the need to be present and revere ourselves so that we can create better stories tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time.
That was absolutely inspiring, Nokubanga. Absolutely. I think so many people who are tuned in are going to resonate with that story. And again, it brings us back to the same point that behavioral change is very important in leadership. Understanding, reaching that point where we believe that yes, we are capable of so much more. Reflection, as Nairobi had told, Andreas had suggested that, communication, engagement, connection, these are so important. And your story just reflects, the personal power. How do you tap it inside yourself? How do you get over the self? So I think there comes a defining moment in everybody's lives where they realize that they are so much more than what they believe. So their self-belief undergoes a change, and the moment the self-belief undergoes a change, we experience behavioral changes. Because I think I love that sentence where you said that, you have to be more visible to yourself. I think somewhere we all are not. So I think your story was absolutely amazing. And I think you would have inspired so many, with that story. And also, I think they would all reflect now and really wish to see themselves, and see what they can accomplish, what they can achieve. And thank you so much for that very, very lovely story that you shared with all of us. I was truly inspired too. And we now go to our fourth speaker, who is Lenin Abrahams. Lenin Abrahams is a testimonial to grit and tenacity. She started her career as a secretary, and she has climbed the corporate ladder to reach senior management levels as the first woman of color. And I'm sure that must have been extremely challenging for her too. She has over 24 years of experience across diverse industries like agriculture, printing, and multinationals, where she was engaging and influencing key stakeholders. She's committed her professional career to utilize her skills and experience to help others grow and bring transformation in themselves. I think this completely reflects also the spirit of our festival, because this is transforming yourself, understanding leadership, demystifying leadership, and transforming yourself. And to borrow from you, making yourself visible to yourself first. So her beliefs are we are all captains of our soul, which is adapted from the poem Invictus by William Ernst Henley. Dare to dream and forge ahead and achieve the impossible, her motto. So over to you, Lenin, and power to you too. So here you go.
Thank you, Pathana. And hello, everybody. What a huge privilege and honor it is for me to be sharing this platform with all of you. And I'm really so excited to be part of this extraordinary initiative. You know, when Sachin asked me to speak at this festival, I thought long and hard about what it is that I could possibly talk about and share with you. And what I realized that the one most important thing that I can talk about is the lessons that I've learned, having been exposed to great leaders and having been guided and inspired by them. And one of the first lessons that I learned is that leadership is about intention. It's about the why. You know, for me, it's not about necessarily the importance of rank or authority, and it's not about the power that one has, but it's about how you show up for someone else, whether it's your colleague, your team, your friend, how you give of yourself and use your experience to empower someone else. And sometimes that there's no reward necessarily any greater than seeing that person flourish and overcome challenges, which makes it all the more so worthwhile. Leadership for me is also about action and behavior. And a few speakers, I think it was Andreas, who mentioned that as well, you know, behavior. And one of the definitions that I came across for leadership is that, and it's very simple, we all know this, leadership is the action of leading people or an organization. But, you know, for me, it's not just necessarily about an action, it's also about leading by example, being the same person that you are, or showing up as the same person, whether you're going through an adverse situation and whether you're going through fortune, whether through success or failure. And someone that stands out for me in this regard, and his name has been mentioned here, and I can't not mention him because for me, he exemplifies this behavior. And that is the first South African Black President, Nelson Mandela, who came into power after being unfairly jailed. And when he came into power, that did not change who he was. He showed up as the same leader as he was in captivity when he rose into power. And many people, even many South Africans, would not think it wrong of him, or would think that should he have been a resentful or retaliated against the oppressors when he came into power, that he might have been justified to do so. But yet he remained true to his cause with as much grace and humility as when he was incarcerated. Another lesson that I've learned is that, you know, as leaders, we don't have to know it all. And I know I'm guilty of that sometimes, where you tend to think that you have to portray this image of always having the answers. Showing our vulnerability is also a way of displaying leadership. I think it helps others see that we know better, no worse as they are. And it means sometimes sharing failures. And yes, that can open us up to criticism, but that's also a way of growing. One of my favorite inspirational speakers is Iyanla Vanzant. I'm not sure if anyone knows her, but just to cut her story, the story that I want to share with you very short. She was a host on the Oprah Winfrey Show. She had a regular hosting session on the show. And after a number of years, she decided she wanted to do her own show, much against the advice of Oprah. And she started her own show, but within the first season, after the first season, her show was canceled. And she writes about that being such a big mistake that she made in a book called Peace from Broken Pieces. So for me, not only did she make the mistakes, but she also shared those mistakes, and we can learn from those mistakes, and that for me shows how she was willing to be vulnerable. Another author and well-known speaker is Rene Brown, who's written a number of books on vulnerability and shame. And she states that staying vulnerable is the risk we have to take if we want to experience connection. And Andreas, I think you mentioned that also, that connection is so important when you a leader and when you coaching people. And it can be on a platform such as this. It can also be on that one-on-one basis where you form that connection. And then leadership is also, for me, about sometimes letting go of the expectation that you have of a certain outcome. You know, yes, we all want that outcome for that's best for the person we're coaching or for our team. But I've learned sometimes along the journey, people lose their initial motivation or they become distracted. And that can sometimes affect you as a leader because you had this intention and you're all gearing and wanting to help and see someone thrive. But for that person to walk away from that process or journey, it's okay, you know. We may never know the impact our small little bit of interaction might have had on that person. And when we've shown up for that person, what else and what more can we be asked for? And then another lesson for me is also the lesson that being a leader comes with huge responsibility. And I think, Sachin, in your stories, you spoke about the influence people can have on, or leaders can have on society. And that for me is so key. I think we can all relate to leaders that have used their influence for great causes. And you've mentioned Mahatma Gandhi, I've mentioned Nelson Mandela, there's Bob Geldof, just to name a few. But we also have ample examples of leaders who have used their influence for massive injustices. And Sachin, you mentioned Hitler. But I think also of the guys of Enron, Jeffrey Skilling and Ken Lay, you know, he said that while they were at the helm of the organization, they created an environment of benign followers, and that they used management practices that instilled fear within their workers. And so I've personally had the experience of being in an organization where the leadership was really caring about the organization, caring about employees, and wanting to see people in the organization grow and develop. And that's where I got a lot of my success and growth and opportunities for development. And the culture that surrounds that, or the culture that comes forth from that type of leadership, is just it's just one where people thrive. And I've also been exposed to an organization where the leadership was more negative and fear-based. And for me, you can again see how that translates into the type of culture that that organization has. And for me to change that culture, if at all, can take many, many years. I think also one of the things that was mentioned earlier, and I'm forgetting which speaker it was, is the lesson I've learned of continuously growing and developing oneself, you know, so that we can be of service to those, meaningful service to those that we lead and guide and direct. When I started out, I mean, there was much less material out there available than there is today. And also with the advancement of technology, accessibility to tools is a mere button click away. So learning never ends. And one key area of learning that I think is so important for us as leaders is self-awareness. This for me means being aware of your strengths, be aware of your weakness, but particularly being aware of the impact that you have on other people and that you have on people that you lead and guide and direct. And then also, in terms of feedback, I think that there's so much to gain from a network of peers. And I think that Beacons Academy and Sachin, what you've created here is exactly that. The network from which we as leaders can learn and guide, and so be a better service to those that are under our guidance. I think given that everyone has cut their speech short, the talk short, let me just skip to possibly one of my other favorite leaders or inspirational speakers, or particularly on leadership, Simon Sinek. According to Simon, listening is not the act of hearing the words that are spoken, but it's the art of understanding the meaning behind the words that are spoken. He speaks about how people don't want to know that they've been heard, but that people want to feel heard and seen. And what that speaks to, for me, is validation. And some practical skills that he suggests is that we replace judgment with curiosity, and that we create a safe space for someone to feel that they can trust us, and that through that it makes them more willing to listen to the advice or the guidance that we're sharing and we're giving. So to conclude, I mean, this is by no means an exhaustive list of lessons. I think we've all on our journey come across many lessons, and I hope that some of it has resonated with you and that you can take something away. And I hope that it reminds us all of the role that we play in impacting the lives of others. I wish all of us the greatest success, from which the fruits for me will be young aspirant leaders thriving, flourishing, whilst making a difference wherever they are in the world. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was absolutely splendid, Lenin. That was really, really very nice. And I think when you talked about vulnerability and you talked about authenticity, that is what people really look up to leaders for. And most people think that being vulnerable shows you as being weak. However, vulnerability, showing one's vulnerability is the biggest strength that you can actually exhibit, because you are not scared of judgment. So I think that very emotionally secure people are only the ones who can actually show that kind of vulnerability and not knowing it all. So I think that is very, very important as a leader, because as you rightly said, nobody has all the answers. And in leadership, we are working together for a common cause, for a common vision, for a common mission to achieve objectives, personal, professional, all of that. And listening with empathy, again, is very, very important and key. And most people, especially now, because of paucity of time and so many pressures, business pressures, bottom line pressures, they really don't listen. They don't understand. They are not able to empathize. And therein they give room for conflict to start breeding, because that's where, when people don't feel that they've been heard, they have not been valued, their thoughts or whatever their concerns are not important enough. So that is where we breed conflict, whether it be in organization or whether it be in relationships. So I think that is extremely vital as a leadership lesson to be taken home to by all people, as leaders or non-leaders as per technical definitions. And before I hand over to Makai, my very good friend, I was listening to a leadership talk, a TED talk, and it impacted me very, very greatly. And that was, leadership is not about you. That was the first message that was given, that leadership is about everybody. It's about, taking the entire flock with you. And the second message in the same talk was that it is only about you. That means unless and until you are really not changing yourself and you are not bringing the change that you wish to see in others, it is not going to happen. And the third message, as you had brought forward, was listening. I think that is the key. A person who listens is able to connect, as Andreas had said, and is able to reflect, as Nairobi had said. And also, you will be able to change the course of thought and behavior to make meaningful purpose and action. So I think amongst all four of you, you have given us so much of valuable lessons, so much to think back and to bring in the required and requisite changes. And it has been my privilege to present each of you And I truly wish you all the very best. And thank you for being with us in this journey of ours. And I would now hand over the baton to my dearest friend, Makai, to take this program forward. Makai, over to you, please.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. And thank you so much for the beautiful presentation that we've received from all of our guests today. It was really empowering, and especially to come to our senses that, sometimes it's important to be guided by values, as we grow up, realize what sort of values that are really pulling us instead of being mission orientated, but be purpose orientated. I really like that coming from our guest. And I believe that we can achieve a whole lot of things if we can do such things, because purpose is greater than anything else. And purpose can be the only thing that can unite us, despite our ethnicity, our race, or culture. And I believe that we can do a whole lot of things, because as human, we have almost like common things if our values are aligned to making our world a better place for the future generations to come. I mean, thank you so much. I'm really grateful for the lessons. Prathana?
Okay, thank you, Makai. And if any of our participants have any questions, I think we still have some time, and our speakers can address it. And alternatively, we would also put in the transcripts of all the speeches onto our website, www.beaconsacademy.com. And if you want to type in your questions on the website and receive answers, that would also be fine. If you wish to ask them face to face, that would also be absolutely wonderful. So the floor is open. So to ask questions, please feel free. Any questions? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely mesmerized by everything that was spoken. And I think give it over to Sunny. Sunny, over to you.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Prarthana, for hosting this wonderful program. And
My
so
privilege.
thank you, especially thank you for all of our speakers for coming up today, showing up today. Because there was a time when I when I really starved for real education. I mean, quality education, quality stuff. And throughout, one of the reason when I compare my village, my place, my society with others, one thing that I often see is this, that there is a starvation for good quality leadership, quality skills, quality knowledge. So at the moment we are going after primary education, which is the main goal of almost all the politicians. But such a in such a mission to bring the primary education, a possible one for everyone, we have actually forgotten to bring that quality education to our society. And as a result, we have people, we have students, we have professionals go into organizations, going to communities, going to societies, going back to their societies without having a clear understanding how to solve the real problems that we face today. So there is out there is something that's causing all the problems that we are facing today, but people do not know how to really solve it. So so I grew up in such an environment, and so today, the reason why we are starting this movement, this mission, is to actually bring that quality education, quality knowledge, quality skills to people who cannot access them. So I'm quite honored, privileged to be a part of a community who believe in that mission, and I am honored to to be a part of a team who continuously work to bring that within the arena of the workspace where they are working or practicing. And I'm happy to know that to see that you have done such a great work in not only in your area but throughout the place, throughout the society and communities and organizations that you have dealt with to bring that a change. So I'm really honored to be a part of this, and I express sincerely my gratitude for all the people who decided to become a part of this movement. So thank you once again. And if you have any other questions to ask, you can just ask. Still we have time. Or you might just want to get to know each other. So this is also a good time to get to know each other, to understand each other, perhaps. Just go ahead and
Session, may I interrupt and say,
definitely.
Do we call you Session or do we call you Sunny?
Yeah, it's up to you. You can call it either Sachin or Sunny, and I was called by both names, and preferably Sachin.
Okay, thank you very much.
If I may, can I add something, Sachin?
Yeah, of course, definitely. Go ahead.
I would invite everyone here to go and take a look on the book, which is called Exemplary Leadership by Kuzes and Posner. And these guys came up with some pillars, 5 pillars. I'm just mentioning one of the pillars of exemplary leadership. And this is, let's say, lead by the heart. Be the role model. Challenge the status quo. All of those nice things we used to go over many, many, many years ago. But right now that we are walking the talk, now we are understanding what the purpose, our purpose as leaders are. So I am just in search of my purpose, my dear friends. So let's go for it. Maybe we can find it together. So it's really worth it. And I'm so happy to be a member of this team and this journey.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Andreas Pratanos. Yeah, definitely.
Beautifully said, Andreas.
I'm so sorry, Natalie.
I said beautifully said.
Thank you so much, and it is a pleasure, and I am honored. Good to know you. Thank you so much.
And are you?
Andreas, just one thing to add. Never too old.
What? Thank you, Neil. Thank you so much, and thank you for being with us today. Thank you so much.
So we have here Unnati Singata. So who is that? Can you introduce yourself? There we have Unnati Singata and Bongkeka. It'd be great if you just would love to meet you. And we have
Hi.
hi. So how is the name pronounced? It's
Unati Singata.
Okay, Unachi Singata. Yeah. So hi, where are you from, Unachi?
I'm Unati Singata from South Africa, and I was introduced to this session by Nokbonga. She is my personal coach, and I didn't expect to be put on the spot like this. I was just listening nicely from the background, but yes, I'm finding this session very insightful, and there's a lot of things to learn from everyone. Like I think the most important part that I've learned is how we all are leaders in our own right, from wherever we are, and in our daily lives, and in how we conduct ourselves. And I've taken quite a lot of notes in terms of what to go and read. And yeah, it's good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Unachi. And so we have here Bongkeka. So if you're here, if you're there, if you can hear me, you can just say hi. We would love to meet you. And yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Bongkeka.
Yes, my name is Bongeka. I'm from South Africa. Sorry, I'm not going to put on my video because I don't think I'm decent enough for this. I was I was introduced to this session by Siasanga through Nogbonga. I'm grateful. I've learned a lot. I had a lot of things that I didn't know about. I've learned today quite so much, and thank you so much to Sasanga for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to you for being here. So let's journey together. Let's make a difference in the world. So thank you, Bongeka, for being here.
Thanks.
And so Ashaniga here. Hi, Ashaniga. How are you? It's Ashaniga. I think she's not there. So our whole team members are here. So so how are you guys? How are you at your home?
We're good, thank you, Session. At least here in Johannesburg, we've got a bit of sun. We've had an immense amount of rain, but we've